Have you ever wondered what lies beyond the stars, a place no one has ever seen? An ancient presence, older than time itself, waits silently in the darkness of the universe. Everything you think you know will be challenged in ways you cannot imagine. One explorer will uncover a truth that will make your heart race, and your mind shiver with fear. Will you dare to follow, or turn back before it's too late? A journey beyond the stars. The spaceship drifted silently through the endless void. Stars stretched like shards of glass across the black sky. Evelyn pressed her hands against the cold metal of the cockpit. Every heartbeat echoed loudly in the stillness of space. A soft hum vibrated through the floor beneath her feet. She adjusted the controls, but the readings flickered unpredictably. Outside, a glowing nebula pulsed like a living organism. Its colors twisted in patterns that felt almost sentient. A sudden shiver ran down her spine as the light intensified. Shadows moved where no light should fall. Her breath caught in her throat. The instruments began to scream warnings she could not interpret. A strange pressure pressed against her chest, heavy and insistent. Then, through the viewport, she saw it. A massive silhouette loomed, vast and impossibly close. It had no form she could name, no edges her mind could process. Eyes, if they were eyes, opened within the darkness, and stared directly at her. The air grew thick, tasting of metal and ozone. Her stomach turned as the silence became suffocating. The stars outside seemed to warp, bending toward the shape. Every instinct screamed to flee, but the spaceship would not respond. The shadow shifted, and a low vibration thrummed through her bones. It felt alive, it felt aware of her presence. And then a whisper, clear, impossibly soft, yet everywhere, spoke her name. Evelyn realized she was utterly alone, yet never more observed. Every system failed at once, plunging the cockpit into darkness. Her vision swam with phosphorescent traces of the nebula, wrapping around her mind. A sharp coldness gripped her hands as though reality itself had thinned. Her last coherent thought trembled with disbelief. Something ancient and infinite had reached out across the stars. And it had found her. Evelyn's body felt like it had been unmoored from gravity. The air shimmered around her, bending light in impossible ways. She could see the outline of the shadow's form, but it was never the same twice. It rippled like liquid darkness, pulsating with intention. Every instinct in her screamed to close her eyes, but she could not look away. Her hands, trembling, reached for the emergency controls. Nothing responded. No buttons, no switches, no voice commands. It was as though the ship itself had become part of the entity outside. A sudden vibration ran through her skull, low and resonant. It was not sound, yet it filled every corner of her mind. Memories she had never lived flashed across her vision. Faces she did not recognize, landscapes she had never seen, and cities that had existed only in nightmares. A smell of burning iron filled the cabin. It was thick, clinging to her tongue and teeth. Her chest ached as though something unseen pressed against her ribs. The nebula outside pulsed more violently now, its colors sickly and alien. Crimson and green mixed with shadow, twisting into grotesque shapes. She could not tell if the shapes were moving or if her eyes were betraying her. A sound, faint at first, began to crawl into her consciousness. It was a high-pitched ringing, almost melodic. And then the voice returned. Clearer this time, it was not speaking words. It was speaking in a rhythm that made her bones resonate. Her mind strained to understand. Every thought she tried to form slipped away like smoke. Her skin crawled, as if tiny hands moved beneath it. A sudden jolt shook the ship violently. The viewport cracked, lines spider webbing across the glass. Stars outside stretched and warped, bending toward the fissures. Evelyn could feel herself being drawn forward, toward the broken glass. She clawed at the floor, nails digging into the metal. The shadow moved closer. She could feel it pressing against her consciousness now, probing, testing. Her vision split between the ship and something vast beyond comprehension. It was like staring into an eternity where time had no meaning. The whisper grew louder, twisting into words she could almost understand. Do you see? Do you feel? Do you understand? Her chest tightened until she could not breathe. She tried to scream, but her voice was gone. A flood of images assaulted her mind. Worlds destroyed, civilizations reduced to dust, stars collapsing in silence. And yet, the shadow seemed curious, patient, as if it were studying her. Her hands bled from the pressure, but she did not feel it. Her thoughts began to fracture, scattering like shards of glass. She realized with a sickening clarity that she was not experiencing the shadow. She was being absorbed into it. Her sense of self flickered, weakening with every heartbeat. Time no longer moved linearly. Past, present, and future bled together. She saw herself floating endlessly, weightless, surrounded by the infinite nebula. And yet, she also felt herself somewhere else. A cold, dark place, filled with eyes. Thousands of them, blinking in rhythm, unblinking in intelligence. They watched her, and she felt them watching not just her body, but the essence of her being. The cockpit shook again, violently. Panels tore from their mounts, floating like debris. The floor beneath her feet became liquid, rippling with shadows. Her heartbeat slowed, then raced uncontrollably. She tried to think, to anchor herself in logic. But logic was meaningless here. The voice spoke again, this time with clarity. You belong to the void now. A cold dread filled her. She tried to resist, to fight, to hold on to herself. But the void inside the nebula pulled at her mind like a tide. Her memories, her identity, her fears, and her desires, all were stripped away layer by layer. She was weightless, nameless, and endless. And yet, a part of her screamed, silent but insistent, clawing at the edges of oblivion. The shadow twisted around her, enveloping her entirely. The stars outside no longer existed. The ship was gone. Her body dissolved into light and shadow, scattering into shapes that defied description. And then she was nothing. For a heartbeat, eternity seemed to pause. And then, in the void, she felt it. The awareness of another presence. Not hostile, not kind, but older than stars, older than time. It pulsed with thought, a rhythm she could not comprehend. And then, as suddenly as it began, it receded. The nebula collapsed inward, leaving only darkness. Evelyn's mind returned in fragments. Her body floated in a silent void, unbound by matter or gravity. Her hands reached out, but there was nothing to grasp. No ship, no stars, no shadow, only the echo of a presence that had altered everything. A single thought survived, fragile and trembling. She was no longer human. Not fully. Somewhere, somehow, a part of her had been left behind in the void. And the void remembered her. It was patient, it was waiting, and Evelyn knew, with a terror deeper than death, that she was never leaving. Her consciousness stretched thin across the infinite darkness. Time became meaningless. Every heartbeat, every breath, every thought became a thread. In the tapestry of the void. She was part of it now. And it was part of her. A whisper curled around her mind, almost a song, almost a sentence. It promised nothing. It threatened nothing. It simply existed. Evelyn screamed silently into the emptiness, but the void swallowed her cry. She had crossed beyond the stars. And the stars no longer belonged to her. She was alone. And yet, the void was alive. It remembered. It waited. And somewhere deep within the endless darkness, a single thought stirred, an echo of Evelyn herself. Slowly, the endless darkness began to shift. A faint glimmer appeared, a distant pulse of light against the void. Evelyn's fractured consciousness stretched toward it, hesitant but drawn. She realized the light was not threatening. It was familiar. Fragments of her old self stirred, memories of laughter, fear, and hope. The void pulsed around her, patient but attentive, as if acknowledging her awakening. Evelyn felt the weight of herself returning, her essence knitting together, fragile but whole. She was changed, no longer entirely human, yet not wholly void. A quiet understanding settled in her mind. She had crossed the stars and touched something infinite. She had faced a presence older than time itself. And yet she survived, not unscathed, but aware. The distant light grew stronger, forming shapes she could recognize, stars, planets, constellations. The void receded, folding in on itself, leaving her suspended between what was and what could be. Her heartbeat returned to a steady rhythm. Her breath came easier now, filling her with a sense of fragile calm. Evelyn realized she was no longer alone. The universe had shifted, subtly but undeniably, around her. Somewhere in that shift, she sensed the shadow again, not as a predator, but as a presence of infinite patience. It would wait, it would remember, and she would carry a piece of it with her, forever changed. Evelyn opened her eyes fully. The stars outside sparkled as they had before, familiar yet strange. She smiled faintly, a mixture of fear and awe. She was no longer just an observer of the cosmos. She was a part of it. And though the journey beyond the stars had nearly consumed her, it had also revealed something remarkable. The universe was alive, and so was she. Evelyn took a deep breath, letting the silence of space wash over her. Some doors, once opened, never closed completely. But she had survived, and now, she could choose where to go next. A faint pulse of light beckoned in the distance. She reached for it, steady and unafraid. The journey beyond the stars had ended. And another had just begun.